Hiya, welcome back folks. Today I am building an Art Deco fireplace for a customer and I thought I would just talk you through the build. As per usual with these sort of jobs, the customer had given me a picture from I think a magazine or Pinterest or something of what they were after. I then knocked up a design on SketchUp which I got them to check that they were happy with. I did do a video about that a little while ago, so I'll include a link in the description. But in this video, I'm just going to talk you through the build of this job, and over on my Patreon there will be a pricing video for it as well, where I go into the job pricing in a little bit more detail as well. So the whole project is made from 12mm MDF. It's just normal MDF, not MR for this sort of project. Doesn't really need MR MDF, but obviously if you want to use MR, that's absolutely fine. MR is moisture resistant, by the way. All I did was I used the track saw first of all to cut everything up to the correct sizes or rough sizes, and then I took it over to the table saw to put the bevels onto everything so that I can get nice face grain only joints on everything. So the first thing that I do after I've run it through the table saw is I quickly run over it with a piece of sandpaper on that sharp edge, because that sharp edge you will cut yourself on it. I did try using masking tape to hold the edge together while nailing it, but it didn't work particularly well. I didn't bother doing that on the rest of the job. And it's just brad nailed together on the corners on the 45 with a couple of support blocks on the inside. So I've got loads of these to make, and you'll see I've made I think 9 of those all together for the various sections of the fire surround. And then all of the ends are mitered, because this is going to be a completely mitered build, so you've got no MDF edge grain anywhere on this project. You'll see all I'm doing here is marking off to get, I've overcut everything, so everything's too long at the minute, and then I'm just going to cut down the bottoms to get all the bottoms exactly the same length, and I'm just using the speed square just to take that line all the way around the bottom sections of the kind of, you could view it as the legs of the fire surround, I suppose, on the bottom side of the fire surround, and then just using the miter saw to cut those off. I'm just making some L supports using the bandsaw here. Had quite a few of these to make, but the bandsaw makes very quick work of these. These are just made out of 18mm plywood, and again glued and brad nailed in place. Now I'm using the speed square just to keep everything square while I put everything together. A couple of last bits of trimming on the table saw just to get the back depth correct, because the inside, the back of the fireplace itself is inset slightly because of the granite mantle that's at the back of this. So then once I've built these 3 units, and they're kind of 3 kind of U-shaped units, and what I'm doing is now lifting the whole fireplace up, attaching it all together, and brad nailed and glued in place. That was actually left overnight to dry, and then once that's all firm and dry, I can turn it upside down and start building the sides for the fire surround. Again, all mitered edges. So everything here has to be pre-planned. I've got the cross-cut sled for doing the shorter miters on these. And then I'm just attaching some, again, plywood supports in around the kind of framework of the fireplace, and this will help just give it some support. Again, just knocking off the sharp edges. Prior to getting the glue all in, just Type 1-2 I'm using for the glue. Brad nailed in place, And then again, that's just all allowed to dry. I'm doing the two sides first and then I'll do the top. Then the top's put in place, and what I've also done, I'm attaching a piece of plywood across the back edge, what will form the back edge of the fire surround, and that's just to give it some extra support so that anything that's put on top of the fireplace won't cause the MDF to sag, because it is only 12mm MDF. Anything that you did leave on top of the fireplace, if you didn't have that extra support inside, it could cause the MDF to sag over time. And I've put an extra support, you'll see there, down at the bottom side of the fire surround for the same reason. Not for sagging so much, but just to give it a bit more structural kind of strength. And then everything has been filled. I filled everything with 2-part filler. I just used a brown 2-part filler. Allowed that to go off and then sanded it all down. And then once it's all sanded, just give it a quick blow down with the air gun. And then just knock down all the edges just with some 80 grit sandpaper, just to kind of take the sharp edges off the MDF, so there's nothing, you know, you need sharp edges on this, but you don't want it to be crazily so sharp that you run the risk of cutting yourself on the edges. MDF edges cut at 45 degrees, and even once they're joined at the 90, can form a very sharp edge. Final stage really is the painting. So it gets a coat of acrylic primer undercoat. First of all, I've done many videos on painting MDF, and then I'm using a Dulux satinwood water-based. It's kind of a water-based eggshell type paint. The satinwood paint's a lovely paint. You can get it custom mixed. This is custom mixed to match in with existing stuff that the customer had in their room. And then obviously that's given 2 coats of the satinwood, and then all allowed to dry prior to installation. Then, actual installation at the customer's site. I needed to hide the cable TV wire inside the back of the fireplace, so that's all I'm doing there. So I just had to pin it around and make sure it was in a location where it wasn't going to hit any of the supports and things on the inside of the fireplace, so that's why it's in that kind of shape. And then what I've also done is I've attached 2 blocks to either side, kind of probably 3/4 way up, and those are going to be the main securing blocks to hold the fire surround to the wall. And then the fire surround will hopefully just neatly slide over the top of them, and then I can put a couple of small screws in from the sides, screw caps over the top, paint them, and then that's it all done. It's a pretty neat way of attaching a fire surround to a wall. Once it's all painted and everything, you don't really notice the screw caps. I'll be touching up all the paintwork around it later on. A screw in each side, screw cap over the top, and then, as I say, I paint the screw cap and I'm painting the wall to match in as well, that's where the old fire surround was, and that's it all done and dusted. Pretty much exactly what the customer was asking for, as per their original thing that they saw in the magazine. And for an Art Deco period property like this, it really sets the living room off perfectly. It's a really nice piece, much more in keeping than the Victorian fireplace that they had in before. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you're new to the channel. I'll see you next time.